Do you have someone in your life that's just extra, too much, impulsive, over the top? You can't keep up with them? I want to give you some strategies today. So welcome back. I'm Stacey Harris. Before we jump into the Help for Leaders podcast, click here to subscribe. Click that thumbs up. We'd love for you to ring that bell so you're notified each week when we post new podcast episodes. Today, we're going to talk about more people reading. We're right in the middle of a series of communication on how to people read the behavioral style. So last week was all about that dominant style. Today, we're going to talk about that high I, that influential, outgoing person that's interactive, persuasive, talkative, sometimes can be labeled as extra, too much, over the top, all of those things. And so I want to talk about people reading. First of all, the high I is honestly the easiest style to read, just from that observable behavior standpoint. Because remember, DISC is a language. We see it every day in every human interaction. We observe these different behavioral styles. So you'll notice if you're watching on YouTube, I'm talking with my hands because I am a high I. High I's talk with their hands. D's do as well, but I's cannot stop talking with the hands. It's really challenging. And so that's one thing. Facial expressions are also so observable with the high I. The eyebrows, the open eyes, the open mouth, the smile with all the teeth, that's classic high I behavior. Also, another body language tip is that they're actually kind of the weavers when they're walking. They'll run into things. It's super kind of clumsy behavioral style because we're focused on your face. That wall has probably been there for years, but I just ran into it today because I'm talking to you and looking at your face, your eyes, eye contact. So you may have bruises in places and you're like, how did that get there? Oh, yeah. That's because I'm a high I. So that's one way to people read, actually just observing styles. But when you hear them communicate, eyes are all about people. They're all about relationships, but they're also very assertive. They like to also do telling, just like I talked about last week with that high D style. Eyes are assertive. They're fast-paced. They like to tell, but they're focused on people rather than tasks. Now, that doesn't mean eyes can't get things done. Eyes love to get things done, but through people, through the team. So they're constantly connecting with individuals on the team. So some of those descriptors that I've already mentioned for the high I are, enthusiasm. They're all about being persuasive and outgoing, but they can also be perceived as impulsive and then indirect. High I's actually can talk around a topic and then get so sidetracked by that squirrel, shiny object, all the things that'll take you off of the path that you're going, which can be super frustrating for those individuals, especially the D style and the C style that are direct communicators. So being aware. So when you hear that in someone, maybe think of someone that you know very well as I'm talking about these different characteristics and see if there's some alignment of that style with the person that you're thinking of. So they also have this real internal need to interact with other people. That's classic I behavior. So when you're people reading and when you're noticing things about your team, if they're all about interaction, all about being involved with others, classic sign of that high I. I didn't mention this last week, but the high I is actually 33% of the U.S. population. It's the largest percentage of the population. It's come down slightly because of the pandemic. It was at 34%. We were a little more optimistic, a little more outgoing. We've kind of declined slightly. But at one time, this style was not the predominant style. It was the S style, and I'll talk about that next week in our episode. But this week, we're talking about the I. So realize there's a large percentage of outgoing, influential, persuasive people that love to be in contact with others and really communicate from that need of talking. Honestly, it's this internal need of the high I to verbalize all of our thoughts, all of our feelings. So if you're observing people and you're thinking, Wow, I think they're just a verbal processor. Guess what? Classic I statement. I'm a verbal processor. I's literally talk to engage their brain in thinking, where other styles do just the opposite. So, someone who loves to talk, classic I behavioral style. So, I's, you're going to see a lot of optimism. The glass is always half full with that high I style. I's also have a hard time saying no. Boundaries are difficult with that high I because they want to be involved. They want to be liked. They want to be a part of that team. And I's are all about the experience. And they're always thinking about the whole team and the experience, or even in a personal level, that experience of what they're going to go do, who they're going to do it with. It is all about the experience. So if you're communicating with that high I style, I want to give you some tips of how to communicate with that influential person. Number one, have fun. That is a big value of the high I, is having fun and engaging in that kind of conversation. Also, let them talk, because they want to talk. They want to actually use that needs-driven behavior to verbalize all of their thoughts and feelings. So let them talk, give them space, connect with them in a personal way. They love that personal connection. So if it's a team member of yours and they've said something, remember that, and then the next time you see them, ask them about that. That's really connecting for that style. So really connecting with them personally. But obviously, on teams, we can't just let I's do all the talking. And so if you are that high I style, as I am, understanding of when to keep your mouth shut is so important. In fact, it's one of the most challenging things for a high I is to hold back, especially in a team meeting, even if every team member has already said the exact same thing. And sometimes we think, we need to be heard. I need to add my voice to that equation. Well, let me tell you something. Maturity and growth in your behavioral style for a high I is actually refraining. It's challenging when you're thinking, I could say it a little differently and it'd be better. Maybe it's honestly the same thing. And not speaking up, it's going to be hard for you, but it could be the most important aspect of your growth in your style, especially in a team context, because time is so valuable and so important. And so learning when it's necessary, when it's not. When am I going on a tangent? When am I focused and driving the meeting forward in a positive, productive way? So those are just some tips and strategies. I hope you've learned something about the high I style, about reading that style. Oh, one last thing. I wore these big earrings today. My mentor used to say, the bigger the earring, the higher the I. And so when you see big hoops and big earrings and bright clothes and big sleeves, guess what? Those are signs of high I behavioral style. There's no science behind that, but I've always loved that statement about bigger the earring, the higher the I. So I hope you've learned something and enjoyed this episode. Join me next week. We're going to talk about that steady style, how to read the style, how to communicate most effectively. If you enjoyed this episode and would like more information on emotional intelligence, behavioral styles, or communication, I'd love for you to click here to watch more episodes. And we'd also love for you to click here to subscribe so you're notified each week when we post more content.